Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Natasha and I do book things here. Today's video is going to be my worst books of 2018. Yeah, now my worst books of 2017 video is one of my most watched videos on my channel. You may remember a particular gem of 2017, which I still own, which was Hot Pterodactyl Boyfriend. So I do suggest, if you want to hear me rant about this at length, to watch that video. You may ask why I've kept this. I feel like every year I'm going to keep my worst book of that year just as a reminder that there's bad things in the world. We have 6 contenders for the worst book of 2018. These are not the worst books released in 2018. I do want to sort of start that off. These are just the worst books that I personally read in 2018. The genres are a little different. The years in which they were released are a little different. But, you know, as a whole, these are the worst books. Now, you'd be surprised to know, maybe, that I only rated 3 books a 1 in 2018. So in general, I read more books that I enjoyed, which is always the goal. For me, is to read stuff I want to be reading, because life is too short to read bad books. It can be fun to read some bad ones every now and then, but for the most part, I want to be reading things that I enjoy. But I do have 3 1-star books, and I have 3 2-star books in here that probably should have been rated a 1. So let's get into this, shall we? And I'll show you guys the worst books of 2018. The first book that I hated was Fruit, a novel about a boy and his nipples. Now, when I get talking nipples as a synopsis, I expect the nipples to be a character, almost like a supernatural kind of character, or like the nipples are haunting him or whatever. What it ended up being was more a book that really did nothing. This didn't really tell me anything. It didn't do much of anything for me. And in fact, it was just a weird boy in a weird town with weird people who are all kind of shitty, and he's dealing with puberty basically, and that's all that this is about. I did end up giving this a 2-star in the end because I feel like it may have been an important book for some people at the time. I believe this was written in 2007, and there's just a lot of bad language and just not great writing. It's just not great, okay? It's just weird. It's weird in a way that is not good. I read a lot of weird books. You guys know I love weird books. I'll go out of my way to find and read weird books. But this one was just not good. Basing this book off of the worst book ever made, which was Hot Pterodactyl Boyfriend, this is definitely a readable book. You can at the very least read this, which, you know, is practically impossible with this one. So I did, in the end, rate it a 2. So, interesting, weird, possibly the worst book of 2018. Up next, we have a book that I dreaded. I dreaded reading this. I dreaded it while I read it. I listened to it on audiobook, and boy, did I hate it. This is going to upset some of you, maybe, but this is another book that is in a contender for the worst book of 2018, and that is Little Women. Little Women. Fucking hated this. Listen, I'm not a classics reader. I appreciate the way that they have shaped fiction throughout the ages. I appreciate what this book did for so many people and what it means to so many people. I'm not one of those people, though. I, as a 29-year-old, read this and thought it was just really sickeningly sweet. It's just, ugh, these like little girls and their little puny life problems set in the 1850s where I don't care. There's just a lot of language that's like, you know, the mother literally speaks like a Hallmark card. She's like, oh, blah, 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 like these like amazing life wisdoms. I didn't care that certain characters died, did not care. Was kind of hoping that they would die at certain points just so I would stop having to read about them. This is way too long. This is a 560-page book, and I couldn't tell you one thing that happened that I cared about at all. I didn't care about them at all. At all. There's a lot of shants. Shant is a word that's said a lot in this, and I didn't care for it. It's not my cup of tea. It is one of the worst books that I read. I do have an appreciation for this. I understand its place in the world. So, is this the worst book that I read in 2018? Probably not. So far, if we're rating these 2, because we're going to rate these, Fruit is a worse book than Little Women. So it is going to go above that. Next book that I hated is The Little Old Lady Strikes Again by Katharina Engelmerd Sundelberg. There's a lot of names there. I read The Little Old Lady Who Broke All the Rules. Didn't care for it that much. It was about a 3-star book, pretty average. I then decided to get the sequel, in which these little ladies... Oh man, okay, so my issue with this is the writing. Now, I'm all for little old ladies. You guys know I love stories with older characters. It's one of my favorite, like, little subgenre niche things that I enjoy. But this was like... this is the plan that the old people are gonna do. Then it's 50 pages of them talking about the plan over and over again. Then maybe they might do the plan, but this is how they're gonna do it. And then they do the plan, and then they talk about the plan, and then now here's the next... It was just repeating the same thing over and over and over again for 400 fucking pages, you know? And it's just so irritating. Like, it was just, can these old people do anything fun? Like, it's just... I find the first book, they were hopping around from place to place to place. This one, they're just sitting in this mansion, apparently, where there's bikers, and it made no sense. It made no sense. It was hard to follow. It was annoying to follow because it just kept repeating itself over and over and over again. Wow, there's an actual garbage truck outside. So maybe it can take all of these books with it. My issue was with this book was just shitty writing. I was so bored, and for like a genre that normally keeps me so motivated, it was just bad. Skimmed the last 200 pages and nothing really happened, and I gave it a 1. I barely finished this, so in terms of ratings, this is definitely worse than Fruit, so Little Old Lady Strikes Again is moving to the top of the list as the worst book. The next one that I have here, maybe a surprise, again, maybe like Little Women, I don't know, that is Orange is the New Black by Piper Kerman. Now, I feel bad rating someone's life story a 1, but I just feel like this was such a jumbled mess of little ideas and stories about what life in a women's prison actually was like, that it had no structure. Has this been told purely as a story of someone's life? Fine, but I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like at a certain point there's so many little like quirks and stories in this that it felt unrealistic, even though I know it's supposed to be realistic, that like it gave me a lot of trust issues for Piper, because I'm like, I don't know if that's actually the case. Now, I mean, that's really hard, and I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't want to rate someone's life a 1, but when it comes to the actual book, the writing is so bad, and I feel like this is just a poor me kind of book, like, oh, this is my poor life, and I was like, you know, a rich white lady who went to prison, oh no. This is just irritating. If you've ever watched Orange is the New Black and you've hated Piper for any, like, 3 seconds of that show, she's literally the worst character on the show. If, quite frankly, if she never appears on another episode, great. She's every bit as annoying in this book times, like, 20 than as she is in the show. She just sucks. And so I hated this because I'm like, oh god, like I wanted a little bit more of a look into maybe what certain characters on the show are based off of. That happens not really in this, but it's just more like, oh, my poor me and my poor life. I didn't care. I didn't care about it. Did I hate this more than A Little Old Lady Strikes Again? I hated it in the fact that I finished it, and I hated the character more. And the character, I mean an actual person who wrote this. But I really do think that The Little Old Lady Strikes Again is still the worst book. Next we have just a book that, oh, I hated. I feel gross after reading this book. That is I Love You, Beth Cooper by Larry Doyle. So this follows the story of Dennis, who basically confesses his love for this girl, Beth Cooper, who's like the hottest girl, blah, blah, blah. And he basically invites her over for a party. She shows up. They get into these weird stories. Eventually he has sex with her. Like, listen, it's just such a bad book. And like at some point it's like a teenage boy's having like a threesome with like these 2 teenage girls. And for me, this is literally a teenage boy's wet dream in a book. It's bad, it's not funny, it has so much like inappropriate language, there's calling people different names and terms and stuff that's just not appropriate. Maybe it was funnier at the time it was released, but I highly doubt that, because I put myself back at the time that this was released. I was high school age, and even then I would be like, who are these dick-ass people in this book? Just, no, just shitty. This is just shitty, full of shitty characters, maybe the writing was like kind of funny if they got, listen, no, it's just bad. It's just, this is really bad. I felt gross reading it. It was just cringy and like blah. And so while The Little Old Lady is like a bad book, this is just a truly bad book in the entire execution. This is just writing. This is execution. This is someone's choice to make this that bad. I feel like this might have been like a translation accident. This is bad. You know what? I Love You, Beth Cooper is officially the worst book right now of 2018. And then I have one left, and that is The Universal Harvester by Jean Darnielle. This I talked about recently, and that it was victim to the synopsis has nothing to do with the story inside, and the story inside made no sense, and I couldn't tell you one thing that it was about, and it's only like 200 pages long. I hated this just because it jumped around from perspective, and it was hard to follow. But it had some ideas there, which I can appreciate. I gave it a 1, I hated it, but like it had at the very least ideas there, and honestly I don't know if the synopsis was written by the author, so I really can't fault that, maybe, but I hated this. So yeah, I think I'm gonna put this underneath The Little Old Lady Strikes Again, and actually have my final 6 books here. So I have my official stock of the worst books of 2018 in order. First book, least worst, is Little Women. Surprising, because I hated it and I thought that this would be the worst book that I read all year. Nope. Next we have Fruit, a story about a boy and his nipples. Orange is the New Black. I hated that definitely more than these two. Then we have The Universal Harvester by Jean Darnielle. Some maybe good ideas in there, it just needs a lot of work. Then we have The Little Old Lady Strikes Again, which was just bad writing, just bad. And then lastly, the very worst book of 2018 for me was I Love You, Beth Cooper by Larry Doyle. I'm sorry, Larry, I'm sure you're a lovely person, but this book sucked. And so it is going into the vault in which my other worst books live. And this is going right beside Hot Pterodactyl Boyfriend by Alan Cumin. Now, I do just want to say that still, in my reading life, Hot Pterodactyl Boyfriend is the worst book of all time. But this is definitely the worst book of 2018. They can go live together somewhere in my closet until I have to whip them out next year for a video. And all of these ones will get donated so that someone else can hate them too. But yeah, if you've read any of these, let me know. If you like them better than me, let me know. If you agree on my opinion, let me know. Overall, this is a fun video to do every year. I have, you know, not as strong opinions as I did last year. I've grown a lot in my reading taste. I've read so many better books, so that's good. But this is just bad. This is just shouldn't be a book, you know? This, I understand, maybe, but it's just garbage, so listen. Those are 2 of the worst books that I've ever read. Let me know down below what's the worst book that you've ever read. Have you read either of those? Sometimes it's nice to just cleanse ourselves of bad things and then forget about them for an entire year. I do hope you guys are doing good, and until my next video, I will talk to all of you soon. Bye!